the comment on the screen here from Mark Jones. We have to admit that Lincoln Riley was a much better offensive coach than Jeff Lebby.
So I jumped on my soapbox on this Saturday night,
Sorry, I missed it.
and I will stay on this. The amount of and I may make some people mad with this, but the amount of outcry and outpouring support for firing Jeff Lebby is just incomprehensible to me. Yes, as a coach, has he made a couple of decisions and a couple of calls, in certain positions in this season that are questionable? Certainly they are. I'm very much like you in the fact that I don't question, play calls all that much. But and it was just on our post game here, it was just like comment after comment about we need to fire Lebby and move on. And I think to myself, they just racked up almost 700 yards of total offense, near half 100 points, and that's not good enough. So, like I said, yeah, are there certain situations where he's made some things and made some bad decisions throughout the season? Certainly. And Venables is the same way. I mean, I think there's some things as a first year head coach that you would absolutely expect for that to happen. And Jeff Lebby is coming from, he's been successful everywhere he's gone. Whether it was at UCF, whether it was at Baylor, and then certainly as most recent as Ole Miss. I think ultimately this fan base is just extremely what's the word? They're extremely needy, and I think they don't have patience for 6-6 seasons, which I understand. But I think at the same time, you've got a quarterback that I think most people would admit that is not. I don't know if I would say not anywhere near, but certainly not on the same level that they've had in the past. I mean, he's a good, solid quarterback. Don't get me wrong. 20 through 6 touchdowns and and over 400 yards in this game Saturday. I think he's got 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on the year. So, but he's not on the level of some of the greats that Oklahoma has had. And so, as successful as they have been this year offensively, it's just it's a bit of a head scratcher to me. Look, Lincoln Riley is either one of, if not the number one offensive mind in the country in the college game today. So, and the fact of the matter is, Lebby's probably top 5, but I think the results aren't necessarily there day in and day out. But I think we kind of as a fan base and people that watch this team have to understand the talent is down. They don't have the same talent level across the board. They don't have any. Oklahoma doesn't have any big time. With all due respect to Marvin Mims, and outside of that, they don't have any big time talent on the outside. Eric Gray's a really solid running back, but they don't have a whole lot of experience behind him as well. So, I think I think if you just you have patience and give him time. I think Oklahoma was, not as consistent as they were maybe a year ago, but they were right. In a lot of these S&P ratings, Oklahoma was right there where they were a year ago, if not just, just a minuscule amount behind. So it's not surprising. I mean, I've followed this team, since I was a kid, and then obviously as I've gotten older, followed them more closely. And there's been multiple times where this fan base is so adamant about winning and so adamant about feeding this monster that I've told you about on here from time to time. That's what Barry Switzer coined it as years and years ago. That it's not they don't accept these types of things. And so one of the things that Caleb Williams came out and said this after he went to USC, like he was happy to be at a place like USC where like the fans weren't always watching and criticizing and putting his every move under a microscope. And there's some thoughts about will Dylan Gabriel come back, or has the fan base kind of ran him off to a certain degree? So it's spoiled was the word that I was looking for a little bit ago. It's a very spoiled fan base, and sometimes it takes seasons like this to humble the fan base. But now, if you're talking to me about Ted Roof, I think that's going to happen. Like, I don't think he'll be part of this program next year, but I don't think Jeff Lebby's not going anywhere. If he goes somewhere, he's taking Jackson Arnold with him, because Jackson Arnold was a guy that committed. He didn't commit to Oklahoma. He committed to Jeff Lebby. So he was very close to committing to Ole Miss last year when he was there, and he committed to Oklahoma mostly because of Jeff Lebby. So I think those are the things you have to just give these. No one has the patience, I don't think, anymore. But you have to give these coaches time. Just because they moved from one place, from Oxford, Mississippi to Norman, Oklahoma, didn't mean they automatically forgot how to coach. It's one of those things where they're trying to, they just have to try to figure out where the talent is and where the talent's not, and suit their strategy that best suits the talent that they have on the roster, and then find out where they need to upgrade that talent, and attack that from a recruiting perspective. Because Oklahoma is, they're still top 10 in recruiting, and a couple of these things happen the way they could flirt with a top 5 recruiting class, and that's still, I mean, very, very good for a team that finished 6-6.